Stop the car. Evelyn Harrison's voice cut through the quiet limousine so sharply that the driver hit the brake before he even looked back. Across the winter-gray sidewalk of Fifth Avenue, beside a closed flower stand, a young black woman sat with her thin coat pulled tight around her shoulders. Her hands were wrapped around a paper cup that no longer held any warmth. But Evelyn was not looking at the torn sleeves. She was staring at the necklace around the woman's neck, a silver chain, a deep red stone, a pendant shaped like an open wing. The same necklace Evelyn had placed in her daughter Daniela's hand 8 years ago, 2 days before the accident that supposedly took Daniela away forever. For one terrible second, Evelyn could not breathe. "Mrs. Harrison? Henry?" Her head of security turned from the front seat. Evelyn did not answer. She opened the door herself. Cold air rushed in. Traffic groaned behind her. Somewhere, a taxi horn cried out. But all of it seemed far away as Evelyn stepped onto the curb in her charcoal wool coat and walked toward the young woman. The woman noticed her coming and straightened at once, not with hope, but with fear. She was maybe 21, with tired brown eyes. Dark skin touched by the cold and natural curls tucked beneath a faded knit cap. Her shoes were worn at the sides. Her jeans were too thin for December. Yet there was something in the way she lifted her chin that made Evelyn pause. This was not someone begging to be saved. This was someone who had learned not to expect mercy. Evelyn stopped 3 feet away. "That necklace," she said. "Where did you get it?" The young woman's hand flew to her chest. "I didn't steal it. I didn't say you did." People kept walking around them, coats brushing past coats, eyes turning away the way city eyes always did. Evelyn heard Henry step close behind her, but she lifted one hand slightly, warning him not to interfere. The young woman looked from Evelyn to Henry, then back again. "I don't know where it came from," she said. Evelyn's heart gave one hard, painful beat. "What do you mean you don't know?" The woman swallowed. "I woke up with it." "Where?" "In a hospital." When? The woman looked down at the cracked paper cup between her knees. 8 years ago, the sidewalk seemed to tilt beneath Evelyn's feet. 8 years. 8 years since Daniela Harrison's car had gone off a cliff road outside Montauk on a storm-dark night. 8 years since divers searched the black water and found only pieces of the wreck. 8 years since Evelyn buried an empty coffin because the ocean had kept what was left of her child. And now, on the neck of a woman who claimed to have woken in a hospital with no past, hung the one thing that should have vanished with Daniela. "What is your name?" Evelyn asked. The woman hesitated. "Naomi," she said. "Naomi Carter. At least that's what they put on the shelter papers." At least, Naomi's fingers tightened around the red stone. "I don't remember much before the hospital. Not my family. Not my birthday. Not where I live. Just water, cold, someone shouting, and a woman crying." Evelyn felt the color leave her face. "A woman?" Naomi nodded once. "In my dreams. She puts this necklace in my hand and tells me to run." The December wind moved between them. For 8 years, Evelyn had believed grief was a locked room. She had built a corporation around that room, filled her days with meetings, acquisitions, foundations, speeches, anything that kept her from touching the walls. But now a woman with no home, no history, and her daughter's necklace around her neck had appeared on Fifth Avenue like a message delivered late by heaven itself. "I want you to come with me," Evelyn said. Naomi's eyes sharpened. "Why?" "Because that necklace belonged to my daughter." Naomi's face changed. Not fear now, not guilt. Something smaller, something broken open. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." "No," Evelyn said, looking at the pendant, "but someone did." Henry stepped closer. "Mrs. Harrison, should I call Dr. Webb?" "Yes," Evelyn said, "and Howard Briggs." Henry understood the second name. Naomi looked at Evelyn as if trying to decide whether this was rescue or danger wearing expensive clothes. Evelyn softened her voice. "You'll have food, a warm room, a doctor. No one will touch that necklace unless you choose to take it off. But I need to know how it ended up with you." Naomi looked down at the cup in her hands. Then she set it carefully beside her, as if even a worthless thing deserved not to be thrown away. "I have dreams about the ocean," she said. "If you can tell me why, I'll come." Evelyn looked at the red stone resting against Naomi's chest. For the first time in 8 years, she was afraid the truth had not died with Daniela. She was afraid it had survived, and it had been sitting in the cold, waiting for someone to finally stop the car. The Meridian Hotel stood only 4 blocks away, but to Naomi Carter it felt like another country. She sat in the back of Evelyn Harrison's limousine with both hands folded tightly in her lap. The leather seat was warm beneath her. The glass between the car and the city made the world outside look quieter than it really was. Evelyn sat across from her, composed but pale. Every few seconds, her eyes drifted to the red stone at Naomi's collar. Naomi noticed. She always noticed when people looked too long. "I really didn't steal it," she said again. Evelyn's face softened. "I believe you." Naomi wanted to trust the answer. But trust was not a door she opened quickly anymore. The limousine stopped in front of the Meridian. The doorman opened Evelyn's door first, then Naomi's. For a moment, Naomi did not move. The lobby beyond the glass doors glowed with soft gold light. There were marble floors, tall winter flowers in silver vases, and people who looked as if they had never slept under a bridge or counted coins for soup. Naomi looked down at her shoes. One sole had split near the toe. "I can't go in there," she said. Evelyn followed her gaze. "Yes, you can. They'll stare. Then let them." Naomi looked up. Evelyn's voice remained quiet, but there was steel beneath it. "You are my guest, and no one in this building will forget that." Naomi did not know why those words made her throat tighten. Maybe because nobody had called her a guest in years. Maybe because it was the first time in a long time someone had spoken as if her presence was not a problem to be managed. She stepped out. Heads turned in the lobby. Not many, but enough. Naomi felt each glance like a small stone against her skin. Evelyn walked beside her, not ahead. That mattered. In the suite upstairs, a fire burned quietly. Food arrived. Soup, bread, tea, roasted chicken. Naomi looked at it but did not touch it. "It's all right," Evelyn said. Naomi picked up the spoon slowly. One sip, then another. After that, hunger overcame pride. She ate carefully, silently, with the discipline of someone who had learned never to waste a crumb. Evelyn looked away to give her privacy. That, too, mattered. Half an hour later, Dr. Patricia Webb arrived. She was calm-eyed, gray-haired, and gentle enough to ask Naomi for permission before touching her wrist. "May I examine you?" Naomi studied her. "Are you going to take the necklace?" "No." "Are you going to send me somewhere?" "No." Only then did Naomi nod. The examination took nearly an hour. Dr. Webb checked old scars. Reflexes, vision, balance, and the healed ridge near the back of Naomi's skull. She asked about dates, names, dreams, pain, sounds, the hospital. "The first thing you remember?" Dr. Webb asked. "A ceiling," Naomi said. "White lights. My throat hurt. Someone kept calling me Jane Doe." Evelyn, standing near the window, closed her eyes. When Dr. Webb finished, she asked Evelyn to step into the hallway. Naomi watched through the half-open door. She could not hear every word, but she heard enough. "Severe head trauma," Dr. Webb said. "Consistent with a fall or impact. There are signs of prolonged exposure to cold water. Trauma can fragment memory, especially when a young girl wakes with no identification and no advocate. No advocate." Naomi looked into the tea. Those two words settled inside her like a truth she had always known but never named. When Evelyn returned, she sat across from Naomi. "Naomi," she said, "I need to ask you something difficult." Naomi braced herself. "Do you remember the name Daniela?" The room went very still. Naomi opened her mouth to say no, but then something moved behind her eyes. Rain on glass. A young woman's voice, breathless and frightened. A hand pushing the necklace into her palm. A whisper near her ear. "Keep this. If we get separated, find my mother." Naomi dropped the cup. It hit the carpet, spilling tea across the pale rug. Evelyn stood at once. "Naomi." Naomi pressed both hands to her temples. "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know if it's real. What did you see?" Naomi looked up, tears bright but unshed. A woman, young, dark hair. She was scared, but she kept smiling at me like she didn't want me to be afraid. Evelyn's breath caught. Naomi's fingers closed around the pendant. She said her name was Daniela. Naomi did not sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw water, black water. A car horn cutting through rain, tires screaming on wet pavement, a young woman's hand gripping hers so tightly it hurt. Daniela's face, pale in the flash of passing headlights, trying to look brave while fear trembled at the corners of her mouth. "Keep this. If we get separated, find my mother." At 7 in the morning, Evelyn knocked gently and entered only after Naomi answered. That small courtesy surprised Naomi again. Evelyn carried 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might be awake," she said. "I don't think I slept." "Neither did I." They sat in silence for a moment. Naomi touched the necklace. What was Daniela like? For the first time since Naomi had met her, Evelyn looked unprepared. She was 26, Evelyn said. Stubborn, impatient, kind in a way that made powerful people uncomfortable. She studied architecture. She said buildings were more honest than boardrooms because if the foundation was weak, they eventually admitted it. Naomi almost smiled. "She sounds was brave. She was difficult," Evelyn said, "but there was love in it. And she had a habit of bringing home people and causes everyone else had overlooked." Naomi looked up. Evelyn saw the question before it was asked. "Yes," she said softly, "that may include you. Before Naomi could answer, Henry appeared at the suite entrance. "Mrs. Harrison, Mr. Briggs is here." Howard Briggs entered without drama. He was a compact man in his late 50s with a gray overcoat, patient eyes, and the tired calm of someone who had spent most of his life listening to people lie. He placed a folder on the dining table. "I found a record," he said. Evelyn stood very still. Howard opened the folder. "Montauk General Hospital, 8 years ago. 3 nights after Daniela Harrison's accident. Female patient, unidentified, estimated age 13 or 14. Severe hypothermia, head trauma. Water in the lungs, found near the lower rocks below the cliff road. Naomi's body went cold despite the fire." Howard slid the paper toward her. "Jane Doe, no family, no identification. A life reduced to empty boxes." "What happened to her?" Evelyn asked. "That is where it becomes troubling," Howard said. "She woke with memory loss. Within 6 days she was discharged to a temporary youth facility in Queens. No proper neurological follow-up, no formal missing persons cross-check." Evelyn's voice sharpened. "A minor found after a major accident was moved across state lines with no identity. That is the official version. And the unofficial version?" Howard laid a grainy photograph on the table. "A hospital parking lot at night. Rain on pavement. A man in a dark coat stepping out of a black sedan." Naomi watched Evelyn's face become cold. "Who is he?" Naomi whispered. "Richard Vale," Evelyn said. Howard added, "Your late husband's cousin. Harrison Corp board member. Current chair of the succession committee." Naomi did not understand every word, but she understood enough. "This man knows me?" "I believe he knew you existed," Howard said. "And I believe he wanted to know what you remembered." Naomi stared at the photograph. Her breath trembled. The memory came not as a picture this time, but as a sound. Daniela's voice in the rain. "Don't listen to Richard. Run when I tell you." Naomi opened her eyes. "I remember his name," she whispered. Evelyn leaned closer. Naomi looked at the photograph. She was scared of him. The name Richard Vale did not leave the room after Naomi spoke it. It stayed there, heavy and cold. Evelyn set the photograph down carefully. "Tell me what you remember." Naomi sat near the fire, wrapped in a clean robe. Her hands shook, but her voice came. "There was a house, maybe near the water. Daniela was there. She kept telling me not to be afraid." "Did you know her before that night?" Howard asked. "I think so. She came to see me more than once. She brought books, a blue backpack, sandwiches wrapped in yellow paper." Naomi frowned. She said my mother had worked for her family. Evelyn looked up. "Your mother?" Naomi closed her eyes. "I don't remember her face clearly, just her hands. She used to braid my hair. She smelled like vanilla lotion." Howard wrote that down. Inside Evelyn, old details began lining themselves up. Years ago, a young woman named Celia Brooks had worked in Harrison Corp's community development office. Brilliant with numbers, quiet. Then gone suddenly after filing a complaint Evelyn had never been allowed to see. Thomas, Evelyn's late husband, had said Celia wanted a different life. Thomas had said many things. "What about Richard?" Howard asked. Naomi swallowed. "He was angry. Not loud. That was worse. He said Daniela was ruining the family. He said she had no idea what damage a girl like me could do." Evelyn's eyes hardened. "A girl like you," Naomi nodded. "Daniela said I was not damaged. She said I was proof." The room went silent. Evelyn sat down slowly. "Proof of what?" Naomi stared at the fire. There was a folder. Daniela had it under her coat. Richard wanted it. He said if she gave it to him, everyone could go home. "What was in it?" Howard asked. "I never saw." Daniela pushed me behind her. Richard said something about blood, shares, and Thomas Harrison's mistake. Evelyn felt the words land one by one. Thomas Harrison's mistake. Her late husband. The man she had mourned. The man whose legacy she had protected. Naomi's eyes filled again. "Daniela said we were going to her mother," she said, "if Mrs. Harrison saw the papers. No one could hide me anymore." The fire cracked softly. Outside, Manhattan continued moving, indifferent and bright. Inside Suite, Evelyn understood something terrible. Daniela had not died running away. She had died trying to bring Naomi home. Howard's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. "The nurse in Albany agreed to speak directly," he said. "She says Daniela Harrison was not alone when she arrived at the hospital." Evelyn turned from the window. "What does that mean?" Howard's eyes sharpened. "According to Donna Reyes, Daniela was brought in alive." Naomi covered her mouth. Evelyn did not move. For 8 years, the official report had said Daniela died at the crash site. For 8 years, Evelyn had lived with an empty coffin and a sealed conclusion. For 8 years, Richard Vale had sat at her table with sympathy in his voice. Now her grief did not rise first. Her anger did. "Call Donna Reyes," Evelyn said. Now, Howard put the call on speaker. A woman's voice came through, older and careful. "This is Donna Reyes, Miss Reyes," Howard said. "I'm here with Evelyn Harrison. There was a long pause. When Donna spoke again, her voice trembled. "Mrs. Harrison, I should have called you years ago." Evelyn closed her eyes. "What happened to my daughter?" No anger, no raised voice. Just the question that had waited 8 years. Donna took a breath. She was alive when they brought her in. The words did not explode. They sank. "How badly hurt was she?" Evelyn asked. "Badly, head injury, broken ribs, internal bleeding, I think." But she was speaking. "What did she say?" She kept asking for the girl. Naomi's throat tightened. "For me?" she whispered. Donna's voice softened. "Yes." She kept saying, "Don't let him take her." Evelyn gripped the back of a chair. "Who was she afraid of?" "A man came to the hospital later that night. Well-dressed. Calm, said he was family." "Richard Vale," Evelyn said. "Yes." Donna continued. "After he arrived, records changed. Daniela was moved under a restricted note. The girl became Jane Doe. I asked why the police weren't told they came from the same incident." "What did they tell you?" Howard asked. "They told me to forget what I saw." Naomi gripped the pendant until the wing pressed into her palm. "And Daniela?" Evelyn asked. "Where was she taken?" "I was told a private facility. I never saw the paperwork. That was the problem. There should have been paperwork." The silence was worse than any answer. Naomi whispered, "Did she die there?" "I don't know, sweetheart." "Sweetheart." The word nearly broke Naomi. Donna took another breath. Before they separated them, Daniela reached across the stretcher rail and pushed something into the girl's hand. A necklace. The girl was barely conscious, but she held onto it so tightly no one could get it away from her. Evelyn turned to Naomi. For the first time, the necklace was not only a clue. It was proof of Daniela's final conscious act in that hospital. Donna continued, "There is one more thing. The young girl had a name tag sewn inside her jacket. It was wet, but I saw part of it before they cut the jacket off." Naomi stopped breathing. "What did it say?" Howard asked. Donna's voice dropped. "Naomi Vale." The room froze. "Vale, Richard's name." Naomi shook her head. "No, that can't be right." But somewhere inside her, behind the missing years, a locked door shifted. A woman braiding her hair. The smell of vanilla lotion. A man's voice in another room. "Not my daughter. Not on paper. Not ever." Naomi stumbled back. "Am I related to him?" No one answered quickly enough. That was answer enough. Howard's voice was careful. "We need a DNA test." Naomi looked at Evelyn. All the warmth of the suite seemed to vanish. "Daniela wasn't just protecting me," she said. Evelyn's eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. "No," she said. "I think she was trying to bring you home." Howard ended the call after promising Donna protection and legal counsel. Then Evelyn picked up her phone. "Diane," she said when her general counsel answered, "cancel my afternoon. Quietly pull every record connected to Richard Vale Foundation, medical transfers, youth shelters, private facilities, and every archived file related to Celia Brooks." She looked at Naomi. "And prepare for an emergency board session." Naomi wiped her face with the back of her hand. "What are you going to do?" Evelyn looked at Richard's photograph one last time. "What Daniela tried to do 8 years ago," she said. "Finish bringing you home." By noon, the Meridian Suite had become a quiet command center. Diane Foster arrived first, carrying 2 document cases and the kind of calm that belonged to lawyers who had spent their lives walking into rooms where powerful people expected fear and found preparation instead. Naomi sat near the window, wrapped in a gray sweater Evelyn had ordered from the hotel boutique. She kept hearing Donna Reyes's voice, Naomi Vale. A name should have felt like a gift. This one felt like a locked room. Diane placed a folder in front of Evelyn. "We found Celia Brooks," she said. "At least the beginning of her." Naomi looked up. Diane continued. "She worked for Harrison Corp 22 years ago. Not long after she left New York, she began using the name Celia Carter, her mother's family name. Public records show Celia Carter gave birth to a daughter named Naomi Carter." Naomi's fingers went cold. Celia. The name moved under her skin like a memory trying to rise. "She filed a sealed civil claim against Richard Vale," Diane said. "It was withdrawn quickly. The index suggests paternity, employment retaliation, and financial coercion." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Richard forced her out." "That is likely," Diane said, "but there is more. Celia appears to have found irregular transfers tied to Richard's early foundation entities. If Daniela found those records, Naomi was not only Richard's daughter, she was the living link to Celia, and Celia was the beginning of the paper trail." Naomi looked from Diane to Evelyn. "You think Richard is my father?" Diane did not hide behind softness. "Yes, we need DNA to confirm it. But the records point there." Naomi looked down at her hands. "In shelters, girls invented fathers, a soldier, a teacher. A man who had gone looking for them but got lost. A good man with a bad map. Naomi had stopped inventing one years ago. Now the world was offering her Richard Vale. She almost laughed, but the sound caught in her throat. So Daniela found out. I believe she did, Evelyn said. Howard placed a printed email on the table. This was recovered from a backup server. Daniela sent it to herself the night she died. Evelyn picked it up. Her daughter's name sat at the top of the page. Subject: if anything happens, Mom needs to know. Evelyn did not read aloud at first. Her face changed in small, painful degrees. Then she handed the paper to Naomi. Naomi's hands trembled. Mom, I know this will hurt you. There is a girl named Naomi Carter, and she matters. Her mother worked for us years ago. Richard buried the records. I think Naomi is his daughter. I think he has spent years making sure she could never prove it. But this is not only about blood. Celia had records. Foundation transfers. Names of people who disappeared into Richard's charity system and came out with new papers or no papers at all. I am bringing Naomi to you tonight. She is scared. Please do not let the room decide who she is before you hear her. I love you, Daniela. Naomi pressed the paper to her chest before she realized what she was doing. Evelyn turned away, one hand covering her mouth. For 8 years, she had imagined Daniela's final thoughts as fear, pain, darkness. Now she held proof that her daughter's last clear act had been courage. She was bringing me to you, Naomi whispered. Yes, Evelyn said. Naomi looked at the necklace. Then why did the car go off the road? Diane placed another folder on the table. There was a mechanic's note from Daniela's car 2 days before the crash. Brake line concern. The service request was canceled. Evelyn's head turned slowly. By whom? Diane's face was grim, an assistant in Richard Vale's office. No one spoke. The fire burned softly. The city moved outside the glass. Somewhere below, people were buying coffee, hailing cabs, answering phones, living in ordinary daylight, unaware that a dead woman's email had just risen from an archive to accuse the living. Naomi stood. I want the DNA test. Evelyn looked at her. Are you sure? No, Naomi's voice shook but did not fail. But I want the truth more than I want to be comfortable, doctor. Webb returned within the hour, a swab inside Naomi's cheek, a sealed kit, a courier waiting downstairs. Diane had secured a legal path through archived family medical material connected to the Vale estate. It will be preliminary, Dr. Webb explained. Fast but not final for court. Enough to support emergency action. Law enforcement will still need certified testing. Naomi nodded. The preliminary results arrived the next morning. For 8 years, Naomi had lived with uncertainty. She had not known her birthday, her family, her school, her childhood address, or whether anyone had ever looked for her. Now the truth was inside a white envelope. Evelyn looked at her. Naomi, this belongs to you first. Naomi opened it slowly. The words blurred at first. Dr. Webb gently pointed to the summary line. The preliminary analysis indicated a biological parent-child relationship between Naomi Carter and the male Vale family reference sample. Naomi read the sentence twice, then a third time. There it was, not a guess, not a memory, not a dream in rain and dark water, a fact. Richard Vale was her father. Naomi folded the paper carefully and placed it back on the table. I thought knowing would make me feel found, she said. Evelyn answered quietly. Sometimes being found begins with grief. Naomi looked toward the fireplace. Did he know I was a child? Yes, Diane said. Did he know Daniela was trying to help me? Howard nodded, yes. Then he knew exactly what he was doing. No one softened that truth. Naomi sat down. She did not cry at first. Her grief arrived differently. It settled over her shoulders, heavy and silent, like a coat she had been wearing for years without knowing its name. After a while, she looked at Evelyn. What happens now? Diane opened the board packet. Richard believes tomorrow's meeting concerns the succession vote he has been building support for. Evelyn has the authority to add an emergency ethics review because that meeting was already scheduled. He doesn't know about me? He may suspect something, Howard said, but he does not know what we have. Naomi looked at the documents. Do I have to speak? Evelyn did not answer quickly. No, you do not have to do anything for me, for the company, or for Daniela's memory. You have already survived more than anyone had the right to ask of you. Naomi looked down at the necklace. But if I don't speak, he gets to see me as a document. Evelyn's eyes held hers. Yes, that word sat between them, honest and unadorned. Naomi stood and carried Daniela's email to the bedroom. When she returned, her voice was quiet. I want to read this, not all of it, just enough. In the boardroom, Diane asked. Naomi nodded. He took my name, my mother, my childhood, and whatever Daniela was trying to give me. I don't want to scream at him. I don't want to beg him. I want him to hear her words in front of the people he lied to. Evelyn's expression shifted. Not pride, exactly. Something deeper. Then we will make room for your voice. That evening, Evelyn found Naomi alone at the window, watching snow begin to fall over Fifth Avenue. I used to hate this street, Naomi said. Everyone looked through me here. Evelyn stood beside her. I looked through people too, Naomi turned. Evelyn did not look away, not because I was cruel. That is what I told myself. I was busy, protected. Grieving, important. There is always a respectable word for not seeing someone. Naomi listened. Then I saw the necklace, Evelyn said. And I saw you only because grief forced my eyes open. Naomi touched the red stone. But you stopped the car. Yes, Evelyn said. Too late for many things, but not too late for this. At dawn, Naomi came out of the bedroom holding Daniela's email against her chest. I can't do it, she said. Evelyn, who had been awake in the sitting room, looked up. You do not have to. Naomi shook her head. My body still remembers running. Every part of me wants to hide. Evelyn did not persuade her. She only placed the evidence folder beside Daniela's email. Then we will carry the truth for you until you are ready. Naomi stared at the paper. Daniela had carried her once, through rain, through fear, through a night that had broken both their lives. Naomi closed her eyes, then she whispered. No, Evelyn waited. Naomi opened her eyes. She carried me once. Today I can carry her words. In the morning, Naomi stepped out of the bedroom wearing a navy dress, a gray coat, and Daniela's necklace. Evelyn looked at her and went very still. What? Naomi asked softly. Evelyn swallowed. Daniela wore navy the night she gave her first public speech. Naomi looked down, suddenly unsure. I can change. No, Evelyn said. Do not change. They rode to Harrison Tower without speaking much. When the limousine stopped, Naomi looked up at the glass building rising into the winter sun. Somewhere inside, Richard Vale believed the world still belonged to men who knew how to hide records, bend rooms, and bury girls without graves. Evelyn reached for the door, but Naomi stopped her. Mrs. Harrison, yes? Naomi's voice was quiet, but it did not shake. Today, I want to walk in first. Evelyn looked at her for a long moment. Then she sat back. Henry opened the door. Cold air entered. Naomi stepped onto the curb, the red stone bright against her chest, and walked toward the building where her name had been stolen. This time, no one looked through her. The lobby of Harrison Tower was built to make people look up. Marble floors, silver elevators. A fountain so controlled even the water seemed trained not to disturb anyone important. Naomi Carter walked through it with Daniela's necklace resting against her chest. For 8 years, lobbies like this had belonged to other people. Warmth was for those with key cards. Names were for those expected somewhere. Elevators were for people whose presence had already been approved. But this morning, security guards stood straighter when they saw Evelyn behind her. Then they looked at Naomi. Not through her, at her. When the elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor, Richard Vale was already waiting near the boardroom. He wore a charcoal suit, a pale blue tie, and the smooth expression of a man who had never needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. Then he saw Naomi. For less than a second, his face changed. A flicker in the eyes, a tightening at the mouth, the faintest backward pull of a man who had just seen a ghost step out of an elevator wearing his family's blood and another woman's necklace. Naomi saw it. So did Evelyn. Richard recovered quickly. Evelyn, he said, I didn't realize you were bringing guests. Evelyn did not slow down. Then the morning has already taught you something. Richard's eyes moved to Naomi's necklace. Miss Carter, I presume. Naomi felt Henry shift beside her, but she lifted her chin. That depends, she said. Which name did you leave for me? The corridor went silent. Richard smiled faintly, but the smile had no warmth. I'm afraid I don't know what you mean. You will, Evelyn said. She opened the boardroom door. The room inside was all glass, walnut, and old power. 12 chairs circled the long table. Folders waited neatly at each seat. The city stretched below, bright and indifferent. Richard entered last. That mattered. At 10 o'clock exactly, Evelyn stood. Before we discuss the scheduled succession motion, she said, this board will hear evidence concerning Richard Vale, the Richard Vale Foundation, the disappearance and death of my daughter, Daniela Harrison, and the concealment of Naomi Carter's identity. The room froze. Richard gave a quiet laugh. This is absurd. Diane Foster rose. Each member has a packet in front of them. It includes Daniela Harrison's recovered email, the Montauk General Transfer Log, Donna Reyes's sworn statement, foundation records, the canceled break service request, and preliminary DNA analysis. Gerald Marsh opened his packet first. Others followed. Paper moved, pages turned, eyes lowered, then lifted toward Richard. Richard stood slowly. Evelyn has allowed grief to cloud her judgment. This is a personal attack dressed as governance. Evelyn did not answer him. She looked at Naomi. Naomi stood. Her knees felt weak, her hands felt cold, but when she unfolded Daniela's email, her voice did not disappear. My name is Naomi Carter, she said. For 8 years, I did not know if that was truly my name. I did not know my mother's name. I did not know why I woke up in a hospital with no past and this necklace in my hand. She touched the pendant once, then she read. There is a girl named Naomi Carter, and she matters. Her mother worked for us years ago. Richard buried the records. I think Naomi is his daughter. I think he has spent years making sure she could never prove it. Naomi lowered the paper. No one moved. Richard's face had gone pale beneath its careful polish. Naomi looked directly at him. She was bringing me to her mother, she said. You stopped her. Richard's hand closed around the back of his chair. That email proves nothing. Howard stepped forward and placed a photograph on the table. Richard in the Montauk General parking lot. Rain on pavement. Black sedan. The night Daniela disappeared from the official record. Diane's voice remained calm. The foundation trail leads to the private facility that received Daniela Harrison before sunrise. That same facility destroyed its archives after an audit supervised by Mr. Vale. Gerald Marsh looked up slowly. Richard, is any part of this untrue? Richard turned toward him. You should be careful, Gerald. It was the wrong sentence. Not denial. Warning. The board understood it. Evelyn stood again. Her voice was calm, but it carried 8 years of grief sharpened into purpose. My daughter was alive when she reached that hospital. A child was stripped of her identity and moved through a foundation created by the man who fathered her and refused to acknowledge her. This board will not proceed with any succession vote proposed by Richard Vale. It will vote now on his immediate suspension pending independent investigation and criminal referral. Richard looked at Naomi then. For the first time, he did not look polished. He looked afraid. Naomi thought fear would satisfy her. It did not. It only made the truth feel heavier. You could have told the truth, she said softly. You could have let me have my mother. You could have let Mrs. Harrison have her daughter. Richard said nothing. Gerald Marsh closed his folder. I move for immediate suspension. Seconded, another board member said. The vote took less than 3 minutes. Unanimous. When security entered, Richard did not fight. He adjusted his cuffs, straightened his jacket, and tried to leave with dignity. But at the door, he stopped once and looked back. Not at Evelyn, at Naomi for years. She had been the girl he believed no room would ever recognize. Now every eye in the room knew her name. As the door closed behind him, Naomi sat down slowly. The boardroom remained silent. Then Evelyn reached across the table and placed her hand gently over Naomi's, not as a CEO, not as a savior, as the mother of a daughter who had not died in vain. Naomi looked down at Daniela's necklace. The red stone was warm. For the first time, it did not feel like a mystery. It felt like a promise kept. Richard Vale was gone from the boardroom, but he left behind the kind of silence that comes after a storm has broken a roof open, and everyone inside is still listening for rain. Naomi had imagined this moment differently. She had thought that when Richard was exposed, relief might rush in like air after being held underwater. But the truth was quieter. Richard was suspended. The evidence was in the open. The people who mattered knew her name, and still, 8 years were gone. A childhood was gone. Daniela was gone. Diane began speaking to the board about criminal referrals, witness protection, and freezing foundation accounts. Naomi heard only pieces. Then Howard stepped quietly to her side. Naomi, he said, there is something you should know. Evelyn turned at once. His face softened. It is not bad news. Naomi looked up. I found Celia Carter, Howard said. Your mother is alive. The room around Naomi blurred. Alive. Her mother was alive. Naomi gripped the edge of the table. Does she know? Naomi asked. Howard nodded. She never stopped looking for you. Naomi covered her mouth. The sound that came from her was not quite a sob. It was smaller than that, older than that. A child's sound buried under years of surviving. She looked for me, Naomi whispered. Yes, Howard said. Hospitals, shelters, churches, child services, some of her letters were ignored. Some were redirected, but she never accepted that you were gone. Naomi turned toward the window. For 8 years, she had carried a private shame she had never spoken aloud. She had wondered if somewhere someone had let her go on purpose. If she had been too much trouble, too poor, too inconvenient, too easy to lose. Now she knew. Loss had not been consent. Someone had stolen them from each other. The limousine ride to Newark was quiet. Evelyn offered to wait until another day. Naomi refused. She could not bear to sleep one more night in a world where her mother was alive and only miles away. They stopped in front of a modest apartment building with green railings and flower pots lined carefully along the entrance, though most of the plants had gone bare for the season. Howard went in first. Naomi stayed in the car with Evelyn. Her hands were trembling. What if she doesn't recognize me? Evelyn looked at her with such tenderness that Naomi had to look away. She will. You don't know that. No. Evelyn said. "But I know what it is to remember a child with your whole body." A few minutes later, Howard returned. "She is ready." Naomi stepped out. The hallway smelled of lemon cleaner and old wood. Somewhere upstairs, a television played softly. At apartment 2B, Naomi stopped. The door opened before Howard could knock. A woman stood there, thin and gray at the temples, one hand gripping the doorframe as if the earth had moved beneath her. She was 60, maybe a little more, with dark eyes that had once belonged to Naomi's dreams. Before Naomi could speak, she smelled it. Vanilla lotion, faint familiar, impossible. For 1 second, neither of them moved. Then the woman whispered, "Mimi." Naomi made a sound like breath breaking. No one had called her that in 8 years. Celia Carter reached for her daughter, then stopped herself halfway, as if afraid to frighten the miracle away. Naomi closed the distance. The moment her mother's arms came around her, the missing years did not vanish. Nothing so simple happened, but they bent. They loosened their grip. They became something that could be mourned instead of merely survived. Celia held Naomi and rocked once, twice, the way a mother rocks a child even when the child has grown. "My baby," she whispered. "My baby came home." Naomi cried then, not quietly, not gracefully. She cried for the hospital ceiling, for the shelters, for every birthday no one knew, for every winter night, for every time she had touched Daniela's necklace and not understood that it was leading her back. Evelyn stood a few steps away, her own eyes wet. Celia saw her over Naomi's shoulder. For a moment, the two women looked at each other. One had lost a daughter, one had found one. Between them stood the truth: Daniela had died trying to deliver. Celia released Naomi only enough to touch the necklace. "She gave it to you," Celia whispered. Naomi nodded through tears. "Daniela." Celia closed her eyes. "She said if anything went wrong, her mother would know it. She said Evelyn Harrison would recognize love when she saw it." Evelyn covered her mouth. For years, she had wondered what Daniela's final hours had meant. Now, in a small Newark apartment, beside a mother who had waited through the impossible, she finally understood. Daniela had not only tried to expose a lie, she had tried to save a family. Celia reached for Evelyn's hand. "I am sorry," Celia said. Evelyn shook her head, tears falling freely now. "No. My daughter found you because she knew the truth mattered. And she found Naomi because she knew Naomi mattered." The room was small. The furniture was old. The afternoon light came through thin curtains and rested on the three women like a blessing no one had dared expect. Outside, the city continued its hard, hurried life. Inside apartment 2B, no one hurried. For the first time in 8 years, Naomi Carter was not a case, not a witness, not a secret, not a woman with a missing file. She was a daughter, and someone had kept the door open. 3 weeks after Richard Vale was removed from Harrison Tower, the city had already begun doing what cities do. It moved on. Morning traffic still crowded Fifth Avenue. Office lights still burned before sunrise. Men and women still hurried past one another with coffee in one hand and phones in the other. But inside Evelyn Harrison's world, nothing had returned to normal, and perhaps that was the mercy. Richard Vale was under federal investigation. The foundation that bore his name had been frozen pending review. Former nurses, clerks, employees, and drivers had begun speaking to investigators, some out of conscience, some because evidence had made silence unsafe. The law would take time. Evelyn understood time. She had built a company by waiting longer than men expected her to wait. But this was different. This was not about winning a vote. This was about Daniela. It was about Naomi. It was about a truth buried under money, fear, and polished manners, yet still finding its way back through a silver necklace and a woman the city had almost refused to see. Naomi did not move into Evelyn's penthouse. Evelyn offered. Celia quietly supported the offer. Howard said it might be safer, but Naomi chose her mother's apartment in Newark. "I lost too many years with her," she told Evelyn. "I don't want to start again by sleeping behind another locked door, no matter how beautiful it is." Evelyn accepted that answer because love, she was learning, did not always mean bringing someone into your house. Sometimes it meant honoring the home they had waited 8 years to find. Celia's apartment changed slowly. A toothbrush beside another toothbrush. A second mug on the kitchen shelf. A mother saying, "Do you want more soup?" A daughter answering, "Yes," because she no longer had to pretend hunger was a private failure. Evelyn visited every Sunday. The first time she came, she brought flowers and stood awkwardly in the doorway of apartment 2B, looking less like a billionaire CEO than a woman unsure of where grief should place its hands. Celia invited her in. They drank tea at the small kitchen table. At first they spoke of lawyers' safety, medical appointments. Naomi's documents and time. Then Celia opened a worn envelope and placed 3 photographs on the table. Naomi as a little girl, missing one front tooth. Naomi in a yellow raincoat. Naomi asleep on Celia's lap, one small hand tangled in her mother's sweater. Naomi touched the photographs with a reverence that made Evelyn look away. Not from discomfort, from recognition. A mother knows the holiness of ordinary pictures after the ordinary has been taken away. A month later, investigators confirmed what Evelyn had feared most. Daniela had not died on the cliff road. She had died 2 days after being transferred from Montauk General to a private facility supported by Richard Vail Foundation. Her internal injuries had gone untreated too long. The restricted file recording her final hours had later been folded into the original crash report through forged medical certification. The truth did not give Evelyn peace, but it gave her something grief had been denied for 8 years. A place to stand. Soon after, Evelyn held a private memorial for Daniela. No cameras, no foundation banners, no speeches written by public relations staff. Just a small gathering near the water outside Montauk, where winter wind moved over the cliffs and the Atlantic rolled dark and endless below. Celia came, Naomi came. Howard stood a little apart. Diane Foster brought a single white rose because Daniela had once interned in her legal department and argued with her about ethics until Diane had secretly liked her. Evelyn stood at the edge of the overlook with Daniela's old scarf folded in her hands. For 8 years, she had mourned her daughter as someone taken by accident. Now she mourned her as someone who had chosen courage on a terrible night. That did not make the loss easier, but it made the memory fuller. My daughter was not perfect, Evelyn said, her voice steady against the wind. She was stubborn, impatient, often certain she was right before anyone else had finished speaking. A small smile moved through the group. Evelyn looked at Naomi, but when it mattered most, Daniela saw what others wanted hidden. She saw a frightened girl, a silenced mother, and a lie powerful men believed would outlive them. She did not walk away. Naomi's fingers closed around the necklace. Evelyn continued. For 8 years I thought Daniela left me only grief. I was wrong. She left me a trail. She left me a duty, and somehow she left me Naomi. Celia lowered her head. Naomi wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. Evelyn unfolded the scarf and let the wind take it. For a moment, the fabric lifted like a pale wing over the cliff, then dropped toward the sea. No one spoke until it disappeared. After the memorial, Naomi walked alone to the railing. Evelyn joined her but did not stand too close. I used to dream about this place, Naomi said, but in the dreams, I was always drowning. And now, Naomi looked at the water. Now I remember Daniela's hand. I remember her telling me to run. I remember being afraid. But I also remember that she did not let go until she had to. Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, Naomi had taken off the necklace. For the first time in 8 years, the silver chain rested in her open palm instead of against her heart. Evelyn went still. You don't have to give it back, she said. I know. Naomi looked down at the red stone. For a long time, this was the only proof I existed. I thought if I lost it, I would disappear. She took a breath. But I have my mother now. I have my name. I have the truth. I don't need it to prove I am real. She held it out. Evelyn did not take it. Instead, she closed Naomi's fingers gently around the pendant. Then keep it for another reason, Evelyn said. Not because you are afraid of being erased. Keep it because Daniela chose you to carry the truth. Naomi looked at her. The old fear did not vanish completely. Perhaps it never would. But something steadier had grown beside it. She put the necklace back on. 6 months later, Naomi Carter stood in a community center in Brooklyn, speaking to a room of young women who had aged too quickly. Some lived in shelters. Some had left foster care. Some carried folders of documents that did not tell half the truth of who they were. Naomi did not stand before them as a symbol. She hated that word. Symbols were too clean. She stood before them as a person. My name is Naomi Carter, she said. For a long time, I thought a missing record meant a missing life. It doesn't. Evelyn sat in the back row beside Celia. She watched Naomi speak with quiet strength. Not polished yet, not rehearsed into emptiness. Real, human, still healing, still afraid sometimes, still standing. Harrison Corp had funded the center anonymously at first. Naomi later insisted the funding be public, transparent, audited, and independent. No more charity with shadows, she told Evelyn. Evelyn had smiled. Daniela would have loved that. Afterward, Evelyn stepped outside into the evening. The city was turning gold at the edges. Cars moved past. People hurried home. A young girl in a red coat crossed the street holding her mother's hand. Naomi came out a few minutes later with Celia beside her. For a moment, Evelyn saw Daniela in the space between them, not as a ghost, not as pain. As consequence, as love continuing its work through the living, Naomi walked over. "Mrs. Harrison, yes? Next Sunday, Mom is making dinner. She said you're coming." Evelyn glanced at Celia, who lifted one eyebrow as if the matter had already been settled. Evelyn smiled. A small, real smile that would have surprised anyone in her boardroom. "Then I am coming, together." The three women stood on the sidewalk while the evening opened around them. Years had been stolen, nothing could undo that. But the lie had not won. Daniela's courage had crossed water, silence, money, and time. Celia's love had kept a door open, Evelyn's grief had finally become action, and Naomi, once nameless on a winter sidewalk, now carried her own future in both hands. She was not a secret anymore. She was not a lost file. She was not a woman the city could pass by without seeing. Naomi Carter stepped forward into the golden light, her mother on one side, Evelyn on the other, and the red stone resting over her heart like a small, bright wing. This time she was not running from the past. She was walking toward a life that finally knew her name.